She asked me to taste the sauce. That's how it started. The kitchen was quiet except for the low simmer of something sweet and slow on the stove. I'd only meant to pass through, to grab my phone from the counter, but she turned as I came in. Hair tucked behind one ear, apron tied too neatly, a faint streak of flour near her wrist. "Here," she said, lifting the wooden spoon toward me. "Tell me if it needs more salt." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I don't think she noticed the way her tone lingered at the end, soft but sure. I hesitated. Maybe because she was his mother. Maybe because she was standing close enough that the warmth of the stove met the warmth of her skin, and I couldn't tell which one made the air feel heavier. "It smells perfect," I said. My voice cracked a little. She smiled, not teasing, not amused, just that kind of smile that sees more than you mean to show. "Try it anyway," she murmured. She didn't hand me the spoon. Instead, she stepped closer, held it between us like an invitation. The scent of tomato and basil rose up between us. When I leaned in, she steadied the spoon with one hand and rested the other lightly on my forearm. Just that, a touch, barely there. But it sent a small, precise spark through the space between skin and thought. I tasted. Too slow. The sauce was warm, too warm, and her hand didn't move. Her thumb brushed the inside of my arm as if she hadn't noticed she was doing it. "Well?" she asked. I swallowed, but the taste wasn't the thing I remembered. "It's good." Her gaze flicked to mine, steady. "Good," she repeated, quieter. Then she pulled her hand back, wiped it on the apron. A movement too casual to be natural. The silence stretched. A clock ticked from somewhere down the hall. The sauce kept bubbling. I wanted to say something about her cooking or the day or anything to fill the space, but she turned away first, reaching for the salt anyway. "You're polite," she said over her shoulder. "That's sweet, but honest feedback is better." I smiled at the back of her neck. "It didn't need salt." She paused, as if that answer held something else. Then she laughed softly, and it wasn't the kind of laugh that needed a joke. "I thought so," she said, and stirred. The spoon moved in slow circles. My eyes followed the motion, then the line of her wrist, the faint scar near her knuckle. Tiny things that didn't belong to memory yet but already felt familiar. The smell of sauce thickened, filling the air. She leaned slightly against the counter, tired maybe, but composed. Her shoulders eased, but her eyes, when she looked back at me, carried something unguarded. "How long are you staying this time?" she asked. "A few days," I said. She nodded, not looking away. "Good. It's been quiet around here." Something in her tone almost sounded like lonely. Almost. The hallway light flickered. Outside, wind pushed against the window, rattling the glass. She dipped the spoon again, blew on it this time. "Maybe it does need salt," she whispered, and reached for my hand to steady the bowl. Her fingers brushed mine, softer this time, slower. And then a door opened down the hall. Footsteps. She dropped the spoon into the sink, the clang too loud for such a small thing. Neither of us moved. The sauce kept simmering, steady, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. The next morning, I told myself the kitchen scene didn't mean anything. Just a strange moment, one of those half-accidents that hang in the air too long. But when I came downstairs, she was already there again. Barefoot, coffee mug in hand, sunlight slipping through the blinds and cutting across her hair. "Morning," she said, and smiled like nothing had happened. I nodded, pretending I wasn't studying her. "Morning." She moved around the counter with a quiet grace that didn't feel rehearsed, just lived in. The kind of grace that comes from years of keeping control of herself, her home, maybe her heart too. "I didn't wake you, did I?" she asked.
No. Primer lit.
I'd been awake before dawn, thinking about her hand on my arm. She looked down at the mug. "You used to sleep in until noon."
¿Y qué si changed?
Her mouth curved. "We all do." There was something in her tone. Not regret exactly, but recognition. Like she was talking to herself more than to me. I sat at the table, trying to look anywhere else. On the counter, the sauce from last night sat in a glass container, sealed and untouched. I wondered if she kept it just because of that moment, or if she, too, couldn't throw it away. When she sat across from me, her robe brushed her knee, and I caught a glimpse of skin before I looked away too fast. She noticed. Of course she did. "Still shy?" she said softly. "Still observant," I answered. That made her laugh. Quietly, almost to herself. "You were always good at seeing people." "Not always," I said. "Sometimes I see too much. Sometimes not enough." Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. "Seeing can be dangerous. People mistake it for permission." I wasn't sure what she meant until she looked up, and then I was. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt charged, like the pause before thunder. She broke it with a breath. "You remind me of him, you know, before we got older, before things got quiet." She meant her husband, my father. I nodded, slow. "He still calls sometimes." "I know." Her voice was calm, but her eyes said otherwise. "We don't talk much anymore. Too much to say, maybe, or not enough." I didn't know what to say back. I wanted to reach across the table, not to fix anything, just to let her know I heard her. Instead, she stood. "You should eat," she said, and moved toward the stove. Her robe slipped from her shoulder as she reached for a pan. I saw her hand tremble, just barely. When she realized, she steadied it with the other. "I can help," I offered. She shook her head but didn't stop me when I stepped closer. We worked in silence, her reaching for the bread, me for the butter, until our hands brushed. Again, neither of us moved this time. The toaster clicked. The smell of coffee thickened. Her fingers stayed over mine, the warmth deliberate now. She didn't look at me, but her voice was low, roughened by something that wasn't tiredness. "You'll make breakfast burn," she said. "I know." Still, neither of us pulled away. The toast smoked. The moment didn't. The house was louder that evening. Dishes clinking, a TV murmuring in another room. Her son had come home for the weekend. My stepbrother. It should have made things easier, a reminder of what not to think, of the distance that should exist. But it didn't. She moved around the kitchen again, quieter than usual, but every motion was deliberate. I was helping set the table, trying not to look at her, failing at that completely. "Could you pass the napkins?" she asked. I reached for them, our fingers brushing for half a second. That same current again, sharp and uninvited. She didn't pull back immediately, just looked at me for a breath longer than she should have. From the other room, a laugh broke the silence. Her son's voice snapped her back. "Thanks," she murmured, stepping away too quickly. The napkins clutched like a shield. Dinner was an act, casual questions, half-listened answers. I watched her more than I should have. The way she smiled on cue, the way she never quite met my eyes. When the plates were cleared, she escaped to the sink. I followed, telling myself I just wanted to help. "He's grown up," I said, meaning her son, meaning nothing. "So have you," she replied. The water hissed, steam rising. "You shouldn't stay up late. You've got that internship, don't you?" I finished early. She handed me a wet glass. Our hands overlapped again. A pattern we both noticed but neither named. Outside, thunder rolled far away, close enough to make the windows hum. "He'll hear," I whispered, unsure why I said it. Her jaw tightened, then stopped, standing so close. But she didn't move. The glass slipped from her hand, hit the counter, didn't break. She laughed softly, nervous, almost out of breath. "Careful," I said. "Always," she murmured, even though we both knew it wasn't true. The thunder grew louder. Rain followed, beating against the roof, drowning the sounds of the TV. I reached for the towel beside her, my shoulder brushing hers. The air between us felt heavy, charged. She turned, maybe to tell me to step back, maybe not. Her face was close, too close. I could see the faint tremor in her lower lip, the way her breath caught. "Don't," she whispered, though neither of us had moved yet. "I'm not," I said, and it was the most honest lie I'd ever told. The moment hung there, a breath, A heartbeat, a decision not yet made. Then the vibration of a phone on the counter. Her son's name lit up the screen. She flinched. I stepped back fast, the distance suddenly unbearable. She turned away, hand pressed against her chest, breathing hard like she'd been running. "I can't," she said, voice shaking. "This isn't." "I know." Silence. Just rain. But when she turned back, something had changed. Her eyes weren't avoiding mine anymore. And even with guilt sitting between us like a shadow, she took one slow step closer. The kind you can't mistake for an accident. It rained again the next night. Harder this time, the kind that makes everything sound closer than it is. She was in the living room, lights low, a half-finished glass of wine beside her. The TV was on but silent. I stood in the doorway, unsure why I'd come down. Maybe because I couldn't stop thinking about how she'd looked when she said "I can't." She didn't look up right away. When she did, her expression softened. Not surprise, not welcome, just quiet resignation. "You couldn't sleep either," she said. I shook my head. "You?" Faint smile. "Didn't even try." The clock ticked behind us, slow and heavy. I crossed the room, every step feeling like it was testing something invisible. "I keep replaying that moment," I said finally. "At the sink." She closed her eyes, the glass still in her hand. "Don't. I can't stop." Her breath caught. She set the wine down too carefully. "You're young. You think everything means something. Then tell me it doesn't." That made her look up. Really look. Her gaze was steady, but her voice shook. "You don't understand what this could ruin."
Ido.
"No," she said, standing now. "You don't. You'd walk away from this with a story." "I'd walk away with—" She stopped herself. "With what?" I asked. Her throat tightened. "With nothing left that's still mine." For a second I thought she'd leave the room. But she didn't. She just stood there, rainlight washing across her face, making her eyes look almost fragile. "I didn't mean to make this hard," I said. "Yes, you did," she whispered. "You just didn't know how much." Silence again. But this one felt different. The air between us had gravity. She took a step toward me, then another. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, the clean edge of rain on her skin. "Say it," she said. "Whatever it is you think this is." My voice barely came out. "I think it's real." She exhaled long, unsteady. Her hand lifted, hesitated in midair, then brushed a strand of hair from her face. I saw her fingers tremble, and before I could think, I reached up and steadied them with my own. Her skin was warm, too warm. "Don't," she breathed, but her hand didn't pull away. "Then stop me," I said. Her eyes fluttered shut, lashes trembling. She leaned in, just enough that I could feel her breath on my mouth. The thunder cracked again, right above the house. We both flinched, but neither stepped back. Her hand moved, to my chest, resting there, feeling the rhythm of a heart trying too hard to stay steady. "Tell me this isn't happening," I said. She opened her eyes wide, unguarded, breaking. "It already is." A sound from the hallway, a door creaking open, footsteps. She froze. So did I. Her lips were still inches from mine. "Go," she whispered, voice barely a breath. "Please." I didn't move. Not until she did, turning away, one hand covering her mouth, as if she could press the moment back inside. The footsteps faded, but the space between us stayed charged, impossible, alive, and neither of us could pretend anymore. The next morning, everything felt too still, the kind of stillness that happens after something breaks but before anyone admits it. I tried to keep my distance. She did too. But silence has a way of tightening around people who share secrets they never meant to. By noon, she was in the garden, sleeves rolled up, dirt on her palms. I watched from the porch for too long before walking out. "Morning," I said. She didn't look up. "Afternoon." The tension was there. Not sharp, just constant, humming under every word. "About last night." She cut me off, voice flat. "We're not talking about that." I nodded. "Okay." But she heard the hesitation. She sighed and set down the trowel, brushing her hands on her jeans. You think this is easy for me? I never said that. You don't have to. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of rain and cut grass. She turned to face me, her eyes tired, defensive. Then the sound came, a buzz from her phone on the garden bench. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and froze. What? I asked. Her throat tightened. She turned the screen toward me. A message. From her son. I heard you and him last night. You should be careful what you whisper in this house. The words hit harder than the thunder had. She sank onto the bench, hand over her mouth, as if that could keep the panic in. He heard us, she whispered. God, I took a step closer. We didn't do anything. Doesn't matter, she said, voice breaking. He thinks we did. She stood suddenly, pacing, her hands shaking now, her breath uneven. He's going to tell his father. He'll tell everyone. I'll lose everything. I reached out to steady her, but she pulled away like the touch burned. Don't, she said, eyes wide. You can't fix this. I'm not trying to fix it. My voice was low, shaking for a different reason. I don't want you to be alone in it. That stopped her. She looked at me, and something shifted, the panic turning into something rawer, closer to grief. You shouldn't have come back here, she said. Maybe not, I said. But I did. And you didn't send me away. Her lips parted, but no words came. She just stared at me, breathing too fast, eyes glinting with something that wasn't anger anymore. I stepped closer again. She didn't move this time. The distance between us disappeared, slow as a confession. My hand brushed hers, trembling, hesitant, and when she didn't pull away, I felt her fingers tighten, almost imperceptibly. He's wrong, I said. We didn't cross the line. She looked down at our joined hands. Not yet, she whispered, and then she pulled free, turned toward the house. I'll talk to him, she said, her voice steadier now, like a decision had hardened inside her. I stood there, heart pounding, knowing whatever she said next, to him, to herself, would decide everything. She paused at the door, glancing back just once. Stay here, she said softly. Please, don't make it worse. Then she went inside. The door clicked shut. The wind picked up. And for the first time, the garden felt like a waiting room for something neither of us could stop. She didn't come back out for hours. I waited on the porch until the light thinned and the house turned quiet again. When the door finally opened, she looked smaller somehow. Pale, tired, but composed. The kind of calm that comes from holding too much inside. He left, she said. Took his bag. Said he needed space. I stood. Did he say anything else? She shook her head, then looked away. He didn't have to. The air between us was brittle, too still to breathe right. Then maybe it's better if I go too, I said. Her eyes lifted fast. Don't. The word hit harder than she meant it to. She took a step forward, then stopped like she wasn't sure who moved first. I can't keep pretending this is something I can just ignore, she said. You make it impossible to stay careful. Then stop being careful. Her breath caught. For a long second, we just stared at each other, both waiting for the other to move. The storm outside had died, but the room still smelled of rain. She closed the distance slowly, one step at a time, until I could feel the warmth radiating off her. A pulse, a question, a warning. You don't understand what this means, she whispered. I do, I said. It means we stop lying to ourselves. Her hand rose halfway, hovered near my face, then brushed my jaw, trembling. The touch was so light it barely existed, but it sent heat through me anyway. She looked up, eyes glistening. You think this is what you want, but once you cross it, then let me find out. Her lips parted. The space between us narrowed to a breath. I could feel the tremor in her fingers as they slid against my neck, the faint hitch of her breath when she leaned in. Not quite close enough, not yet. You're making this too real, she said, voice barely sound. Maybe it already was. She let out a broken laugh, half disbelief, half surrender. You shouldn't say things like that. Why? Because I'll believe you. Her forehead touched mine, just lightly. Everything in me went still. Her hand rested against my chest again, the same spot as before. Only this time, she didn't pull away. We stood like that for a long moment. No distance left, no words left. Just the sound of rain sliding down the windows again, slow and steady. Then she drew in a shaky breath and whispered, "If I let this happen, I can't take it back." "Then don't," I said. Her eyes met mine wide, searching, unguarded. "You'll regret it." "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight." Something in her broke then, quietly, invisibly. She closed her eyes, leaned in until her lips brushed the edge of a promise neither of us had the strength to keep. Then she stopped, pulled back just an inch. "I can't," she said again. But her voice was softer, almost tender. "Not because I don't want to, because I finally know that I do." And somehow that was enough. We stood there, breathing the same air, everything unspoken finally understood. Outside, the storm cleared. Inside, nothing did, but for the first time, it felt like truth instead of tension. The rain had finally stopped. The house felt different in the quiet. Lighter somehow, like the air had been holding its breath all night and finally let it go. She was already awake when I came downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table with both hands around a cup of coffee. The same kitchen, the same table, but something had shifted. She looked up when she heard me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. There wasn't anything left to hide behind. "You didn't sleep," I said. She smiled faintly. "You didn't either." I sat across from her, the distance feeling unnecessary now. "You talked to him?" She nodded, eyes steady but soft. "He'll be gone for a while. He needed time. And you?" "I needed to remember who I am when no one's looking," she said. "And then you showed up, and it was like the universe decided to test me." I half smiled. Did I pass or fail? Her laugh came quietly, small but real. "Neither. You reminded me I'm still alive." The sunlight broke through the window then, landing across the table, catching the gold in her hair. She brushed it back absently, and the small human gesture undid me more than any words could. "I don't know what happens next," I said. "Neither do I," she admitted. "But for once, I'm not afraid of it." I reached across the table, slowly, like asking permission, and she met me halfway. Her fingers slid into mine, warm and sure. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It just was. For a long time we sat there, two people who had spent too long pretending they weren't waiting for something they couldn't name. Finally, she stood and came around the table, stopping beside me. I rose too. We faced each other in that narrow strip of morning light. Her hand came up to my cheek, steady now. No hesitation this time. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. Not the way people are supposed to, the way I forgot I could be seen." I leaned in just enough that our foreheads touched. No words.
No ruse.
Just breathing, hers, mine. Finding rhythm in the quiet. When she finally pulled back, she didn't look away. Whatever this becomes, it started honestly. That has to count for something. "It does," I said. She smiled, small but full, the kind that carries both endings and beginnings. The kettle clicked off behind us. The world kept going. But in that moment it didn't matter. We just stood there, still holding hands, the warmth between us steady, real, and finally uncomplicated. Outside, the last drops of rain slid off the roof, sunlight turning them to gold. Maybe that was enough, not perfect, not forever, but true. And for both of us, that was everything. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?